This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Franklin D. Roosevelt came into power when America was going through difficult times, the Great Depression. During his first 100 days of rule, he devised a series of proposals to create the legal and institutional framework that governed America during the New Deal period, 1933-1938. As a response to the Great Depression, Roosevelt came up with 3 R's, namely, relief, which was about aid for the poor, recovery, which was about uplifting the economy, and reform, which was about changes in the financial sector meant to prevent such depression from happening in the future. Therefore, this essay discusses the first 100 days of the New Deal, focusing on the 3 R's. Relief. The Great Depression affected America so that 1/3 of the urban population was left poor. To address this problem, Roosevelt came up with the Federal Emergency Administration, FERA, an institution created under the Federal Emergency Relief Act of March 1933, to offer relief support by providing grants to projects targeted towards job creation as well as the provision of relief items. The grants were given to state-owned projects, which could then use the funds to provide food and employment to the poor in their respective states. For example, FERA established the Civil Works of Administration, CWA, to create employment through the construction of roads, dams, bridges, schools, airports, and hospitals, among others. FERA also supported projects focusing on the production of consumer goods, thereby creating jobs and ensuring that Americans had access to necessities. This approach solved 2 problems, i.e., unemployment and development of the country. The dams constructed did not only take care of flooding but also provided water for irrigation and electricity. South Americans were the worst hit by famine and, hence, considered the first to be resettled and supplied with electricity and good roads. Apart from the Civil Works of Administration, Roosevelt also established the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, to provide jobs through massive land reclamation and conservation of natural resources. Workers under the Civilian Conservation Corps planted trees, controlled floods, and reclaimed areas in areas where there was massive soil erosion. Roosevelt's focus under the Civilian Conservation Corps was on the agricultural sector on federal lands because he believed that the economy would only regain its lost glory if the agricultural sector was revamped. This approach provided employment to the rural poor, conserved natural resources, and ensured food availability. The results of the relief efforts became clear by the end of 1933 due to the use of the proper techniques and tools in agriculture and the development of the infrastructure. Further, Roosevelt came up with the Social Security Administration, SSA, to take care of the disabled and the elderly by giving them money to cater to their needs. The plan was very effective and alleviated panic caused by uncertainty about their future needs. Recovery. Apart from providing relief, Roosevelt also focused on getting the economy back on its feet. In the early 1930s, agricultural prices worsened due to an overflow of agricultural products, which led to a sharp decline in the prices of agricultural products. Roosevelt enacted the Agricultural Adjustment Act, AAA, in May 1933 to address the situation. The act aimed to create artificial scarcity of agricultural commodities to increase prices. The Agricultural Adjustment Administration was then created to negotiate restrictions on the production of agricultural products outside the Food Processing Funds tax. Another recovery attempt was the creation of the National Recovery Administration through the enactment of the National Industrial Recovery Act, NIRA, to regulate and stimulate industrial production. Roosevelt also came up with the Public Works Administration, PWA, under the same act to take charge of public infrastructural development, such as the construction of public roads, bridges, and buildings. Roosevelt's recovery efforts not only provided a much-needed boost to the economy but also created jobs and improved the lives of many Americans. For example, the industrial production rate increased tremendously between 1933 and 1935. In addition, most businesses accepted the new employment policies, including minimum wages, 8 working hours per day, and no child labor. There was also an improvement in the housing sector since economic conditions became favorable for people to build and own homes. This was possible since mortgage loans were easily accessible since they had low interest rates. Housing agencies such as the Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, and the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, emerged to provide advice and loans to potential homeowners. Reforms. Reform efforts were aimed at preventing America from facing a similar crisis in the future. The focus was mainly on financial institutions. The banking sector was a mess by the time Roosevelt took office. Hence, he saw an urgent need to reform the sector to restore confidence in the banks. His immediate effort was to close all banks for 4 days to help identify the good banks and those to be shut down. Roosevelt created the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, to guarantee Americans' savings safety, restoring the public trust in private banks. This approach was meant to cultivate a culture of saving among Americans by assuring them that their money will be safe even in the event that the bank fails. A similar reform in the financial sector was the creation of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, to regulate the stock market. The stock market was characterized by severe fraud and abuse. Hence, there was a need to regulate it and safeguard people's investments. The Securities and Exchange Commission regulated both Wall Street and the stock market exchanges by enforcing regulations to eliminate illegal financial dealings. Conclusion. The first New Deal came at a time when America was going through a difficult time economically, financially, and socially. Despite this, the New Deal spelled a new dawn for America as it involved enacting significant pieces of legislation and establishing important institutions that governed America for several years. The gains realized by the 3Rs were felt in America for several years, and some are still evident even to date. Therefore, the first New Deal provides lessons that can be applied to restore countries that are recovering from serious crises such as war. If you want to find more works like this essay on the 3Rs of the New Deal in the United States history, head over to ivypanda.com. It has a collection of free samples with thousands of submissions covering virtually all academic subjects. No registration required to access it.